tons or more of waste and sludge in the ground may seem like a simple solution to your waste management challenges. By expanding the Region 2000 landfill, it poses serious risks to our health, local economy, and infrastructure. Proven reasons why, with health hazards, air quality. Landfills, as you know, emit gases such as methane and VOCs, which can lead to respiratory issues, cardiovascular problems, and other serious health conditions, including cancer, for those living nearby. Water contamination. Leachate, the toxic liquid produced by decomposing waste, which you're all familiar with, can seep into the groundwater and contaminate drinking water sources, posing severe health risks. Will Region 2000 install water lines to protect our drinking water? There is nothing in that proposal that I've seen that suggests that that may happen to protect people in the area. Also, the economic impacts that expanding landfills can lead to a decrease in property value and value of homes and land in the surrounding area. So homeowners and businesses face diminished investments and a reduced quality of life, all at the same time. Our local economy feels the impact of long-term costs of environmental remediation, which will fall on our local government if things go wrong, because it will be easy for a regional entity to disband or walk away when there is a problem. The impact on airports, bird strikes, landfills and attract birds and other wildlife, as you may know. Increasing risk of bird strikes at nearby airports. These strikes can endanger aircraft safety and disrupt flight operations, leading to increased costs and dangers for our regional airport and Liberty University School of Aviation, both located in Campbell County. The Ford Act was developed specifically to protect against these dangers. Airport expansion limitations, the presence of a landfill in this area continuing will constrain airport expansion and the development projects around it, limiting the growth of our aviation infrastructure and regional connectivity. I'm very concerned about that. Sustainability, when it comes to that, investing in.
That's 3 minutes. How much more time would you need to finish your?
Yeah, I've got a bit more. Okay.
Is another 2 minutes enough, do you think?
How about I just finish?
How much time do you think you have?
I don't know. I didn't practice in front of anybody. Okay. I would say hopefully another 2-3 minutes.
Would the board be okay with another 3 minutes from Mr. Hardy?
Defer to my colleagues. I certainly am agreeable to it.
Is someone else speaking today?
Mr. Merritt.
Okay, do we have a total of how many minutes for public comment? Right.
Okay, we can certainly.
I think most of the time we have a total number of minutes and we could actually divide if only 1 or 2, whatever.
Alec, do you know if we have a total number of minutes allocated?
We do not know. Yes, not limited to.
If you want to limit my freedom of speech, I guess you can try.
Certainly not the intent. We do have rules of procedure that we typically follow.
I understand. I'm on a board too.
So I would be okay if Mr. Hardy got another 3 minutes and then another 3 minutes for each of the other speakers.
Is that a typical practice of your board to allow people to?
Yes,
okay.
It is. Yes,
okay.
ma'am.
It's only fair then.
Yeah. So the Region 2000 Service Authority has been a perfect example of how dysfunctional and out of control government can get when it expands. In the last 10 years, the Region 2000 Services Authority has been forced to install a landfill gas collection system because of problems. Denied local citizen representation on the Services Authority Board. The landfill has attracted a large amount of birds that cause flight risks and damage to local buildings. They've failed to approve a property protection plan for those living in close proximity. They failed to invest in recycling methods to minimize waste and reduce costs. Contributed heavily to littered roadways on our primary corridors in Campbell County, and withheld over $6 million of excess revenue payments to by the two localities that have decided to vote against the distribution of those funds. In addition, there's now litigation settlement offer that is a terrible deal. It is, an attempt by surrounding localities that brought no assets to the authority to extort future dollars and cash now in exchange for expansion, exchange for land use, money for land use. This is shameful. It's reprehensible. And the expansion plan that you intend to approve today is riddled with issues, including the pro forma not being correct, the property lines not being correct. I get calls from constituents and people who border this property where this is clearly not paying attention to those property lines in Campbell County, the drawings, and staff that will not return their calls. I get those calls in Campbell County and complaints because staff at Region 2000 will not call them back. So, in addition, I see where on your agenda today that there is looks like a request or perhaps the proposal to transfer property to Lynchburg. So I would like to know how much is Lynchburg paying for the scales and the property? There is no mention of that, just a transfer. Why does it not include the entry road? That should be Lynchburg's responsibility. They're the only locality using it. Where are the revenue lines associated with Lynchburg's use of the scales over the years? Because Lynchburg is getting this benefit, is using those scales today, and at the expense of the rest of the authority members. I'd like to just see the revenue lines. If money's being sent from Lynchburg to the authority,
Thank you, Mr. Hardy.
that's fine. If this is going to occur, there needs
Mr.
to
Hardy?
be more dollars associated with Campbell, okay?
Mr. Hardy,
And
your time is up.
I'm going to finish my sentence.
Mr. Hardy, I'm sorry, we'll adjourn the meeting until until you're prepared to sit down, but your time is up. We've offered you an additional 3 minutes.
So I hope that you will consider.
Thank you, Ms. Okay, we're going to take a 5 minute,
Changing.
we're going to adjourn the meeting for 5 minutes.
That's fine.
All right.
I appreciate it. Very good. Yeah, keep it coming. Absolutely. You're welcome. Email.
Rogers is our representative. I'd like to request that staff to address the subterranean landfill fires and their cause September 9th. What happened, what the remediation was. Some points that I didn't get to say. I think that the community deserves to hear from 2000 about it. I didn't see anything on the agenda. So if you'll make sure that that's addressed.
I don't know that I'll do that. I understand the concern. You were there that day, correct, Mr. Hart? You were on site?
I went there, but I don't know the cause. I don't know, why it's when the ground closed like
So.
Thank you.
Possibly that could be a FOIA request. We're not prepared to address.
I think there's a number of ways to do it. I may ask the authority staff to provide a written summary of what transpired there. We can do a FOIA request. We can do
The subject matter is.
a addition to a separate.
It was reported to the DEQ. We have a summary of what happened.
So will you make that available, Mr. Hardy, please?
Sure.
All right, we will bring this meeting back to order. We will continue with public comment. Mr. Reagan.
First of all, thank you all for the time to address you. This, it's a new situation for me. Never done something like this before. I want to say first that information Mr. Hardy brings to the table for you to consider is valid information. I believe he's done his research. He knows what he's talking about. I'm one of the residents that had to put up with the odor coming from the landfill this past summer, and it was not good. Let's be honest with each other. Nobody wants a landfill in their backyard. That's not something anybody wants. But what you're talking about doing over the next 25 years is not making a landfill in my backyard. It's making a huge monster of a mound of buried trash that's less than a quarter of a mile from my house. In this day and time, you can tell I have no prepared notes, so I'm speaking from my head and my heart. In this day and time, it just doesn't make sense to me that the best thing to do with waste is to bury it in the ground in somebody's backyard. I don't feel like enough opportunity has been put forth to look into recycling. Recycling, from my little bit of research, can reduce actual waste that goes in landfill by as much as 50%. And that is a revenue generator when it's recycled by the recycling companies today. I don't think there's enough been put into that to even say you're ready to consider expanding, burying more trash in our backyards. The other thing about it is, if you don't have to bury the trash in the backyard, you as Region 2000 have another source of income that you could be looking into at the same time. You could be looking into making what is called the Bennett property, that I pass by very frequently every other day, into a solar farm. Now stop me right there. Nobody wants a solar farm in their backyard either. However, if you give me a choice in my backyard as a solar farm versus a 50, 75, 100 acre landfill, I'll take solar farm every day. The amount of money that Region 2000 could get from using that land in that form is tremendous. Solar farms are funded by the government nowadays, and they're tremendous money makers for 30 years into the future. I come from Halifax County. There's probably about 400 acres of solar farms in Halifax County right now today, producing electricity and producing revenue for the people who have the leases on the property. If Region 2000 has the opportunity to use that land to make money off of, some of that land could offset the cost of transfer stations or recycling to make a better solution than, again, repeating myself, stop burying trash in the ground. There's better technology, there's better opportunity. Please look into that instead of just going down the road of opening up a huge mountain in Campbell County. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you listening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Merritt. Mr. Reagan. Mrs. White?
Am I allowed to ask a question relative to Mr. Merritt's question?
Typically not.
Oh,
I think
okay.
we all want to allow it.
It's looking at you. No, my only question would be, would that be something that, would the Board of Supervisors support zoning of a solar farm in that area? I don't even know how, if that's an option for us. The question is that an area that could be zoned for a solar farm, and would the board support that? I mean, I don't know if I guess we're not supposed to have an exchange. I apologize.
Have an exchange.
Okay.
It's been done before, Susan, for folks who are even on the board. So,
Yeah.
Merrick, I know that you brought this topic up. I don't know if
Know that from my home county, I beg pardon, Mr. Chair, am I allowed to speak?
Yes, sir.
From my home county, some of the landowners that I have contacts with, it is a process. Landowners are generally contacted by solar farm producers, the manufacturers, the builders. And it does have to go through a public draft or a public situation to be approved. Since I brought the topic up, I'd be glad to volunteer and bring back any information the board would like to hear about possibly using that land as a solar farm. I'd be glad to
Thank
if you wanted to.
I would say as a board member, I think that, it's a land use decision. It would be the same, that it would have to be brought by an entity or a property owner to the board and go through the public process before a decision can be made. I can't say for 6 other members whether they would be open to it or not. Solar farms can be done well and they can be done and seen both. So, I think that those are the details of, a project that have to be studied and come forward. But I also think that I would agree with Merritt that forward-thinking ideas of how to solve cost and waste problems together and use property is certainly something that should be considered by the
Thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
All right.
an appropriate way.
For those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Sandy White, and I live at 232 Green. All of the drawings that I have had access to minimize Callahan Road and Greenhouse Road. Greenhouse Road is a straight shot into livestock. I have had horrible experiences with trash trucks. There are a number of them that go through my street as fast as they can go because they know that it's not monitored. I requested a traffic study for Greenhouse Road last year. They being the sheriff's department, brought out the radar trail. However, the placement of the trailer left out 50 houses. The trailer was placed at Waverly. Waverly is part of the area off of Greenhouse. There were approximately 1,200 cars a day going on Greenhouse Road. So to imply that there won't be a traffic issue, there will be. There's no doubt about it. I have the copy of the study done by the Campbell County Sheriff's Office. It breaks down the days when the traffic is heaviest. The days that traffic is heaviest coincides with the days that trash trucks have picked up the day before. That's not speculation. I've seen it. I actually have an old cassette recorder that I could bring in documentation as to the traffic on the road. When I left home to come here this afternoon, I waited for 17 cars to pass in front of me before I could get out to the street. Now, if you had that issue in Lynchburg, the police department would be hearing about it. That area is not a good place for high volume traffic. And it needs to be considered because there are over 125 houses off of Greenhouse Road.
Thank you, Ms. White. Next item on the agenda is the minutes from our last regular meeting on June 26th.
Move approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Minutes pass. Next, we have Gas collection system expansion. Clark.
Okay. In our landfill expansion proposal, we committed to continue to expand our landfill gas collection system. We've expanded it several times since it was initially installed over the years. This is a good faith effort to continue to expand and meet our commitments to control odors and the gas from the landfill. We're proposing, in your packet, you have the proposal from SCS Engineers to expand into our recently completed phase 4, which includes installing several collection lines and also several gas collection wells. The cost of the project will be $361,800. We're asking the board to consider that and approve the use of post-closure funds to fund this project. It is a legitimate closure cost, as this is a permanent addition to our gas collection system that will work well beyond the closure period, the closure of the landfill. I'm asking for approval to execute this contract.
Any questions or comments?
I have a question. Clark, can you just clarify for the board and the public that we've installed this gas collection system voluntarily?
Yes, we
And there were no regulatory thresholds that were exceeded that forced us to put in this collection?
that's true. When we first installed the gas collection system, we were not under any DEQ mandates to install it. We did it to mostly control the gas and the odor emanating from the landfill. And it's been proven to be very, very, very successful. In the proposal, you'll see a graph showing the odor complaints before and after the gas collection system was installed. And at the end of the meeting, under the organizational reports, as always, I'll have an odor report, which I'll go ahead and share that we've only had 2 odor complaints from 2 addresses since our last
Screen.
It's in the proposal. It's buried in here somewhere.
Okay.
If I may, Candy, just while they're loading that up, I think it's a great point. The odors in Campbell were absolutely horrific, as the authority will recall. I think the complaints went from 140 down to the 2 today, which I think is outstanding. I want to express my gratitude to the authority for your continued investment in the gas extraction system. I hope we'll continue it today because I really think it's been critical. And back when those odor issues were so prominent in the community, there was a lot of turmoil. There was legislation proposed, so lots of community discussion that's been addressed with gas extraction system. And so I appreciate very much the authority's willingness to invest in it. And I hope that today we will continue to do so.
And Clark, is the primary, really only benefit of the gas extraction system odor control?
At this time, yes, we do have a contract with a energy company that had proposed to put a energy producing plant on the site to convert the methane that we burn 24/7 into electricity. However, that project was not approved through Campbell County because we needed a special use permit to move forward with that project.
Understood. But in the future, if that were ever a consideration again, the installation of this extraction system would be critical to helping produce that revenue.
Oh, absolutely. We have, the contract with the energy company is, they're still very interested in installing a gas to energy project. And we've also had several other companies inquire about using the gas to produce energy for a project. So yes, and it would produce a significant amount of revenue for the authority and save all the members, additional money on their tipping fees, because the additional revenue that we could be realizing through the sale of the gas.
Alec, have we been successful at finding that?
It's right after Appendix C.
Oh, in the lateral expansion.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought we were looking in the current agenda.
No, it's under the proposal. The next page past Appendix C. Yeah. Yeah, close.
Clark, without pulling that up, can you provide us with an overview of the data?
Yeah, the bar chart shows that back in September 2015 through about November 2016, we were experiencing significant odor complaints, and we did have a problem. No question about that. And we were getting about 100 and anywhere from 116 to 40 or 50 complaints a month during that period for odors. We activated the landfill gas collection system on this November 17th, 2016. And as you'll see from that chart, the complaints immediately began to drop to about 13 to 14 complaints a month. And then over the next year, they dropped to about an average of 2 to 3 complaints a month since January of 2018. So I think that's the data proves that the gas collection system has been a success.
Thank you.
Sure. And that's the chart I was just reading off of. That first section there, if you can't read I can't read it, but it's September 15th through about September 2015 to around September of 2016. And then that sharp drop is when we, right after we implemented the landfill gas collection system. And then over the next year, the complaints continued to drop until we're kind of leveled off at about 2 or 3 complaints a month, especially in the last year or two. We've had numerous months where we didn't have any complaints. So if you look at the data, that very end of that chart, which we, at the time of writing this proposal, we stopped the data in March of 2024. But as you see that year between March of 23 and March of 24, we just got very few odor complaints. And that trend has continued since March.
I think the odor complaints have been localized primarily to those 2 spots. I think it tends to be the same 2 addresses that are in.
That's correct. 2 or 3 addresses.
I don't know what more we can do specific to them, but I just hold that out that there's a very specific issue with a couple of spots.
Mhm.
But nonetheless, very grateful for the investment in the system.
Yeah, and what we've also found that when we do get the odor complaints, it's not a chronic not a chronic odor throughout the day, because we do go investigate, and the odors tend to dissipate pretty quickly now. So it's more of a localized and a short-lived odor.
Excellent. Any other questions or comments?
Nope. I'd like to make a motion if we're ready to approve the gas collection system expansion as presented and also amend our FY25 budget by adding a line item on Schedule 2 as an expense to the closure and post-closure reserve for Livestock Road in the amount of $361,800.
Second that.
The additional discussion? All right. Let's vote. Susan? Kate?
Yes.
Yes. And aye. Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. That project will begin this fall and should be completed by the end of the year, first of next year.
Next item is a resolution that would direct staff to apply to Campbell County to rezone property for landfill expansion in order to meet time limit for the expansion of the landfill. This would also be a request for a special use permit as is required. This resolution, want to be clear, does not speak to anything other than the submission of those applications and does not speak to any of the negotiation that has been ongoing with respect to outstanding litigation. Clark, do you have anything to add?
You have in your packet the application for the lateral expansion dated October 7th. You also have the draft proposal for the expansion project, which is much more detailed. The application that will, with your approval, will submit to Campbell County is based on the expansion proposal that you have. Just in summary, we reach capacity with our current permitted space in early 2029. This proposal extends the life of the landfill about 24 years. It covers about 60 acres adjacent to the existing landfill. It piggybacks over the slope, the southern slope of the existing landfill. We're including a 500-foot forested buffer around the expansion area, and the height of the landfill expansion will not exceed the existing landfill height. Mike Lawless from TRC is online here. He's with the engineering firm that helped prepare the landfill expansion proposal and the application. They've also been our engineer of record since the beginning of the authority, and they have designed all the expansion and all the cells leading up to this point. So Mike is here to answer any technical questions that you might have. But we're requesting approval to submit this rezoning and special use permit application to Campbell County.
Do we have any questions for Clark or for Mike?
Got a few, Mr. Chair, if I could. I'm not sure who to direct them to. So I appreciate the proposal attempting to address some community concerns we heard some 10 years ago. Specific to the height, I believe, this can be tricky to me to get into this. I think that this proposal reduces the proposed height maybe 65 feet from what it was initially. And that in layman's terms, it's best understood it won't be any taller than it already is. Is that fair?
That's correct. It's with the height of the final grade of the expansion area will not exceed the current final grade. And you're right, it is about 65 feet shorter than it was previously.
Okay, thank you. And then with regard to the 500-foot buffer, had a citizen actually bring to my attention, they thought that was the required minimum already. It seems to me, based on a little bit of research I've done, there is a 500-foot buffer required from a wellhead. But this would be from the property boundary, correct?
Correct. And this, I believe the regulatory requirement from the property boundary is 100 feet. So it would be significant
That's correct.
increase from that.
There is a contested boundary on the project. I believe staff is aware of that. So I want to be clear that my understanding is that if that property does not belong to the region, the boundary to that property line is actually 250 feet. Is that correct?
Yes.
And there is presently no plan to clarify the question of title over that parcel.
Probably should take action to resolve that boundary as we go to the.
I, if I may, I think that DEQ will require that property line issue to be resolved during the permitting process.
Okay.
But you're right. If the authority actually does not own that, that would reduce the buffer in that small area to about 250 feet or so.
Right. So we wouldn't be talking about if we try to resolve that and it doesn't come into the authority's possession, we wouldn't be talking about 500 from that line. Right? We'd be talking
Right.
about 250.
Correct.
Which still exceeds the minimum.
Still
It
exceeds it.
still
but it wouldn't
exceeds
be
the minimum.
I want to be real transparent with the number there because it's,
Right.
you know, I want to be clear to everybody. With regard to odor, I think the proposal also indicates that the odor extraction system will be expanded into future space. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
In terms of traffic, are we looking at any more traffic than is already occurring to the current landfill space?
There are no plans on adding any additional members or customers at this time. And we don't expect any significant increases in tonnage over the years. As you can see from our pro forma, that takes us out to, you know, the 24-year period. We've been very conservative on the increase in tonnage throughout that period.
In addition, the city is contemplating building a transfer station, which would reduce their traffic out to the facility.
It's my understanding the city would build that transfer station with or without the expansion.
That is currently the plan. A lot of that ultimately will come down to funding available. We do have funds appropriated. And as we all know, things have gotten more expensive quickly over the last 5 years. So, we're still working on identifying a location. I think once we have identified a location, we'll get a better understanding of the total cost of the requirements for moving forward there. But as of now, yes, I think our plan is to move forward with that transfer station regardless of the expansion.
You know, I guess a question to that, and just forgive my fog mind right now, but how would that reduce the traffic?
The
Right.
transfer
You're
station.
still getting the same volume of trash.
So right now, our trash trucks, our refuse trucks pick up in the neighborhoods and then drive
Oh,
out
okay.
to Livestock Road.
So now you can
So
just
now we would go to the
consolidate.
transfer station, we load it all up into a 52-foot transfer trailer and take it out there. So you'd see significantly reduced volume from our city-owned refuse trucks.
Larger.
The forested buffer, would that be using existing trees and forest, or would that be planted after the expansion?
We would use the existing forest and supplement it with additional plantings where needed.
And it is a mature pine forest right now.
Okay, so we're not talking about needing 20+ years to actually form a meaningful area.
There's some very tall pines that exist on the site right now.
Any other questions or comments?
The proposal included in the agenda packet today is in fact, the same proposal that's been out and available to the public for a number of weeks, right?
Yes,
Have there been any changes to it since its initial release?
no,
I don't have any other questions, Mr. Chairman.
I might just, I guess, point out that this proposal does include a methane gas collection system and waste to energy component.
the proposal that we submitted, finally, it's a draft at this form, but it does include a gas collection system expansion, which is today's action is part of that, to approve the expansion on the table now. And as in the past, we will continue to expand that as the landfill grows. And the proposal also includes the potential of a gas to energy project to put that gas to a beneficial use, whether it be direct gas to generators to electricity, or a landfill compressed natural gas system. We've had interest for both types of projects from energy companies, a lot of interest. And that gas will be produced during the life of the landfill and beyond, and continue to produce revenue for the authority.
Andy, Susan, any other?
Thank you.
Can I have a motion?
Well, I'll move that the authority approve the proposed resolution before us, directing staff to apply to Campbell County to rezone property for landfill expansion in order to meet time limits for the expansion of the landfill. Let's see. And also, I guess I should just read the whole resolution. Whereas the Region 2000 Services Authority would like to direct staff to apply to Campbell County to rezone property for landfill expansion in order to meet time limits for the expansion of the landfill. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of the Region 2000 Services Authority directs staff to make application to the Community Development Office of Campbell County for a rezoning request and special use permit and any other applicable required permits or authorizations for an expansion of the landfill on such land use-related terms as are stated in the document entitled Region 2000 Regional Landfill Livestock Road Expansion dated July 29, 2024.
A second.
Second.
Further discussion? I have a vote. Susan,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Frank, yes, and yes for me. Motion passes 4-0. Next item, financing reimbursement resolution. Clark?
I'm going to turn this one over to Bill. This is something that we typically do before every large project to have the ability to reimburse the authority for funds that we expend prior to receiving the financing for the project.
I'm sure all of you have done this in your jurisdictions. We're going to issue bonds at some point or borrow money to build to sell if expansion occurs. And this just allows us to take expenses that are accumulated before that issuance and use bond proceeds for that when the bonds or the bank loan is consummated. So sort of standard operating procedure before issuance of debt of any kind.
Thank you, Bill. Any questions? May I have a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
Further discussion? All right, let's vote. Susan?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Frank?
Yes.
Yes, motion passes 4-0. Next item, resolution to transfer real estate. Clark?
When the authority was formed, we purchased the land from the city of Lynchburg where the Concord Turnpike landfill is located. The city of Lynchburg had a public works operation, their solid waste operations on that site. So we had initially carved out a small parcel for the city to continue to own and that land where their shop was located and where they operate their solid waste collection division out of. There's an easement from the entrance to that landlocked parcel that we agreed to through the authority property. The authority continued operating the scale operation at that site. So we did not turn over the property where the scale and the scale house is located at that time. The city has reimbursed the authority over the years 100% of the pay and benefits of that operator. But the city owns the scales that were installed a couple years ago, they were replaced a couple years ago. So they're practically new scales. The city of Lynchburg paid 100% for that project. And they also paid to upgrade the scale house at the site. So the city already owns the scales and the scale house there, but they do not own that property that you see shaded in pink in your packet there, which is a rough approximation of what we would transfer over to the city, which is almost about a third of an acre or so. So the city and the authority have agreed that the city would take over the operations of that scale house next month. And in order to do that, we want to transfer the actual real property to the city where the scales are located and maintain that what's called a non-exclusive variable ingress and egress easement so that the authority can still have access through that area to the closed landfill on that site. So we're asking the board to approve a resolution to transfer that property from the authority to the city.
Thanks, Clark. And I want to be clear, we've the city of Lynchburg has been in conversations with Region 2000 for 6 to 9 months now about the scale house operation. Bottom line, we have our refuse collection operation out there, and the folks that are coming across that scale house are dumping trash in the city, and then we take it to Region 2000. We're paying the full cost of it. To have a single region employee out there when the rest of the operation is run by the city of Lynchburg just is inefficient. We have recently begun to enforce what were existing rules related to construction debris. Residents were never supposed to be allowed to dump construction debris out there. And it highlighted just how important it was that everyone that's part of the operation be part of the same team. So that reality sort of made us want to speed up the process of transferring that responsibility to the city. I think our initial thoughts was it would be July 1. But moving forward, we just want this all to be part of the same operation. And that's the main driver of this resolution, not necessarily the land transfer, but just getting the operations under one team.
So we are suggesting that we transfer, what'd you say, a third of an acre?
Approximately a third of an
That is
acre.
property on a closed landfill that abuts your convenience center, your aggregation point, has infrastructure that you've paid to put on it, and is staffed by an individual that you fund.
Yes, that's a very good summary. Thank you.
So based on that, any and all employees that are connected with that center would become an employee of Lynchburg?
Wouldn't necessarily become an employee of Lynchburg. At this point, our intent would be to use an existing City of Lynchburg employee to man the scale house. I think there may be a region employee who currently works there. And I think this resolution would also, if I'm reading this correctly, eliminate that position from the authority. Because there will be no more reimbursement coming from the city since we're taking over operations.
Yeah, that position has been fully funded by reimbursement from Lynchburg and fully dedicated to operation and service to Lynchburg out there.
That's correct. And ultimately, we'll likely, in the upcoming budget, add a position to man for a full-time scalehouse operator. Again, it'll be no net new cost to the city of Lynchburg because we're no longer paying the authority. And we'll competitively advertise the position at that point.
How does the maintenance of that access road work currently?
The authority
The authorities.
has historically maintained the road, but it's a paved road that comes off of Concord Turnpike, and the current agreement with city is that they pay a portion of the regulatory costs based on the amount of the landfill that was used prior to us taking over, and there's also an older landfill on that site too. So whenever we have a regulatory monitoring event, the city has been paying a percentage of that. And we haven't had to do any maintenance on that road, but I would imagine that we would continue some type of a similar percentage to keep that, to maintain that road. But the road is on authority property.
And I mean, and has there been a transfer price negotiated between the authority and Lynchburg, or is that to be determined?
We have not negotiated a price for that. So. I mean, it would be very minimal fee, if any, to transfer it over, because it really doesn't impact our continued operation because it's a closed landfill, and it really serves to benefit Lynchburg more than us to own that property.
At this point, there is no fee for the transfer. If there were one, it should be included in the resolution. But up until this point, there has not been one.
Thank you.
I mean, for what it's worth, I'd certainly make the argument that a landlocked third of an acre in a closed landfill probably isn't going to command much of the price on the open market. And we certainly hadn't contemplated paying for it.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think that, again, I think that I agree with Greg that it's very, very minimal value to that piece of property.
Mr. Cameron,
Sir,
I move,
yes, ma'am.
that's all. I move that we adopt a resolution to transfer the property at the closed Concord Turnpike landfill as shown on Exhibit A to the
Second,
Second.
any additional discussion? All right, let's vote. Susan,
Yes.
Andy.
Yes.
Brad,
Yes.
and yes, motion passes 4-0. Next item, we have organizational reports. Clark.
Part A, I'll turn that over to Alec and Sandy.
Very briefly, the Region 2000 Service Authority audit is well underway. The fact it might even be done. It's very close to being done, and we'll have for consideration at your January meeting per usual. It's gone smoothly. There have been no concerns. We believe the authority is in good financial health. Our auditors will confirm that in January. Sandy has provided a financial report balance sheet that takes us through the first quarter of this fiscal year, meaning that it ends on September 30th. Sandy, do you have any things to highlight in that report?
As far as the audit, I just want to say we did have a draft. Everything that we received. We should be getting the final. There's nothing really to report on financial, other than we're just like to point out Schedule 7 from the we did replace some mobile radios that were in the equipment. That was actually budgeted in last year's budget. We just now are getting to have it.
Right, thank you, Clark. The director's report.
Okay, in your packet, you have the tonnage chart. As you can see, we're a little bit above last year's year-to-date tonnage. But over the past 5 years, we've balanced out our average tonnages, with the exception of 21, which was the COVID year, which we had a spike in tonnage, but we've gone back down to more normal levels now. So I don't anticipate any major increases in tonnage through the rest of this fiscal year. I anticipate us following the historic trends. Odor report. We've had 2 odor complaints since our last board meeting, and they were from 2 separate addresses on Callahan Road.
Thank you, Clark. Any questions? All right, that is the end of our agenda. I'd like to move to adjourn.
Prior to doing so, I'd just like to be on record asking Mr. Gibson to provide the DEQ summary of the landfill fire to Mr. Harding pursuant to his request.
Okay.
I think it should be provided to,
They should be made available to the public. Good point.
Clark, is that something you can just post on the website?
Yes, we can do that. We reported, when an incident like that occurs, we have a 24-hour reporting period to verbally call the DEQ. We did that. And we have a 5-day window to submit a summary. We did that. The DEQ came out and did a spot inspection as a result, and we can provide all those reports to you, and we'll just post them on the website.
It'd be great.
Ready to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
second.
All right. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you.